I'm going to go through the video I arrested the district attorney. I'll go through point by point and show you the important parts of what I did and then explain why I did it. I'd like to give you a little bit of background so you understand why it is they do what they do. When you go through family law, custody, and visitation proceedings, they intentionally deny you equal access to your children. They do this so then they can charge you the most in child support. One of the main factors in calculating child support is the amount of time you have with your child. So they have a vested interest here in taking your children from you so they can jack up your child support to the maximum amount, and they use a software program in California called a DissoMaster, and it actually calculates everybody's income, any deductions you have, any tax write-offs, etc., etc. In California, if my memory serves me correctly, they take like up to 49% of your income, which doesn't leave you as a single father the ability to live yourself or to even ever have another life, another child, another relationship. You're now a slave. And the other thing they do is they let these cases hang for a while, they let your child support build up, and then they come after you for what's called arrears, and then they charge interest on those arrears. So even if you would pay all your back child support, they would then hit you with another bill for the interest. I've seen this go on for 20 plus years, and it absolutely devastates parents, single fathers usually, and puts them into financial ruin. I would also like to mention that any cases that go to the county district attorney via welfare system in California, it's Welfare and Institutions Code, Section 11375. They call it reimbursement. So what happens is the federal government sends those public assistance welfare dollars to each state. The state then, through the counties, disperses that money to the individual parents. So under the Welfare and Institutions Code and Title IV of the United States Code, the Social Security Act, the state's obligated to go after the absent parent to recover or get reimbursement for that child support or the public assistance monies that are paid out. Now here's the kicker. Any of those reimbursement monies that are collected by the state keeps. They do not send the money back to the federal government. So the state has a vested interest on any of this money that they collect via the reimbursement process. They don't send it back to the federal government, they keep it. So it's in their best interest to separate you from your children so that they can make the most amount of money. It's a scam that's destroying the fabric of our society. There are so many children growing up without fathers in their lives that they turn to crime, they turn to gangs as they get older in life. They have no social structure or structure of what a father's supposed to be in their life. They have children themselves, and they have no sense of responsibility to that child. So now that generation of children is growing up without fathers. If you look back over time now, we're about 60 years into fatherless children. Look at what it's done to our society. Now, that's also good for the government because a lot of these kids turn into criminals. They're roaming the street in gangs with guns, committing crimes, and that also feeds into the government system. They want it this way. It keeps their district attorneys working. It keeps their social services departments open and running. It keeps the prisons filled. So it's all well calculated and by design. So now you have a basic understanding of how this process works. Mr. Folkowski is with the Family Support Division for the county, and he's one of the hitmen that does this work for the government. They pay him well. Now, I'd like to note that I caught Mr. Folkowski out in the hall before court proceedings, and I told him, look, I don't want to have to do what I'm about to do. I told him, hey, look, I'm going to have to hammer on you, and, it's not really what I want to do. Then he just kind of giggled, and he looked at me, and he's like, yeah, I can hold my own. Well, you be the judge of that. Did he hold his own? Let's watch some video, shall we?
Mr. Falkowski, did you want to take up Mr. Alexander's matter?
Sure.
Mr. Alexander, case number 375134. Oh, hang on just a second, Mr. Falkowski. Mr. Alexander has asked for a video of the proceedings.
Excuse me, are you attempting to serve me something, sir? So when the video starts out, you see him walk over and he tries serving me some documents. Well, that's not appropriate service under the Code of Civil Procedure that governs service of documents.
Hang on just a second, Mr. Falkowski. Mr. Alexander has asked for a video of the proceedings.
Now, here's something I really don't understand. The judge tells Mr. Falkowski to hold on. Mr. Alexander requested a videotape copy of the proceedings. So, where's the lady that's running the videotape machine?
Your Honor, for the record, I gave Mr. Alexander some advance sheets.
So, of course, I object for the record, and then he starts to give an explanation. Well, I came across these, and I'm thinking, I don't care what you came across. I'm the moving party. I filed the moving papers to bring us to court. I get to speak first. That's how the rules are written.
Your Honor, I would object at this time.
Well, it was just additional authority that came to my attention after I filed my response. I basically am in court.
So once again, I have to voice my objection.
Objection, Your Honor. I'm the moving party, and I'd like to address the court before Mr. Falkowski says another word. And based on situations and circumstances...
And then we have Bailiff Tom. Bailiff Tom steps in with his clipboard and his stipulation, and he says, hey, you gotta sign this. And I say, I'm not signing it. And then he's like, whoa, we can't hear your case. Well, like, he's the one that makes that determination? Who the heck is this guy? He's a bailiff.
Let's sign this first.
I'm sorry, sir, I can't do that.
Well, can't hear the case, sir.
And then Mr. Falkowski comes in, and even though I'm somewhat procedurally out of order, well, no, you're definitely procedurally out of order, so shut up.
Although procedural, I may be somewhat out of order.
And then you hear Mr. Falkowski come in and say that one of the rights Mr. Alexander's alleging that he's violating is his right to counsel, and he wants to hold the matter over until Friday.
I would ask it be set over until Friday, since one of the rights that Mr. Alexander is stating that I'm violating is his right to counsel on the underlying contempt action, and if it was continued until Friday, a public defender would be present, could advise him on that issue. I think that's the first issue we should take up, is whether or not he's representing himself, or whether or not he wants a public defender appointed.
Okay, those of you that think Mr. Alexander wants a public defender, please raise your hand.
Mr. Alexander, you know I can't proceed without a stipulation. Do you wish me to send this over to the presiding judge?
No, I don't want you to send this over to the presiding judge. I want to just spin this in your face. Hold on.
Your Honor, if I may briefly address the court.
Okay, it will have to be brief, Mr. Alexander.
Briefly, Your Honor.
Okay, it'll have to be brief because I have 4 trials scheduled and I'm just too damn busy for justice.
Because I do have 4 trials.
Pursuant to
handle,
documents
so-
filed in the United States District Court this day, Fresno County Superior Court judges en banc, including all, the full court, are named to expect adverse parties in a federal class action lawsuit. Thus, it would be inappropriate for any Fresno County Superior Court judge to hear this case.
So I name the full court en banc. That means all the judges inclusively. And in doing so, it creates a conflict of interest, so nobody can hear the case. So then comes the fun part. Now it's time to place Mr. Falkowski under citizen's arrest. So I start with the 3 elements necessary to perform a citizen's arrest under California law, Penal Code Section 837.
Equally, it is my intent, pursuant to my authority under California Penal Code Section 837, place Mr. Falkowski under citizen's arrest.
So immediately the judge hears the magic words, bing, 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 authority, citizen's arrest. She's all, what? What are the charges?
On what basis, sir?
So then I cite the charges. I start with Penal Code Section 166, which is contempt. If you bring proceedings before the court that are false or fraudulent, that's contempt. If you lie in front of the court and file false documents, that's contempt. So the other 2 charges were Penal Code Section 422.6 and 422.7, which is discrimination against a qualified individual with a disability or discriminating against a handicapped person. In this case, those statutes are threats, intimidation, coercion, etc.
Violation of Penal Code Section 166 as well as 422.6, 422.7.
And then you can see I look to my right, I look right at Bailiff Tom, and I tell him, hey, take my prisoner into custody. You can cite him out pursuant to Penal Code Section 849. That's your discretion.
At this point in time, I am additionally requesting that a peace officer of the state of California take said individual who I now deliver into custody. You may cite him out pursuant to Penal Code Section 849, sub B1. That's your discretion.
Now, people, this is the fun part. You gotta look at the judge. You gotta look at her body language. You gotta look at Mr. Folkowski. Look at his body language. At first, it's kind of funny because it catches him off guard, but then he realizes, oh shit, all the elements have just been hit. I've been placed under arrest. You see him reach in his back pocket and pull out his wallet and his keys, and he says, give these to my wife. I'm under arrest.
Additionally, Your Honor, I would leave the court a copy momentarily, my personal file copy of said petition under Federal Rules of Civil Procedure Rule 27, filed this day with the federal court.
Now there's a cool tool. Federal Rules of Civil Procedure Rule 27. It allows you to take depositions of people without filing a lawsuit, so it's like a form of advanced discovery. Now, did I think it was going to go anywhere? No. Did I think it was going to stir the pot and create a bunch of shit? Absolutely.
Going over and serving the presiding judge and bank.
Tom, if you could hand me a copy of that Mr. Alexander has.
Now, I don't disrespect these people, but I don't give away courtesy copies of crap for nothing, especially to a judge. That's why I serve the presiding judge and bank the full court. Then it's on him to make the copies. And then you can hear me tell the judge, and I'd like to have it back, Your Honor. Give it back.
I would like to have this back, Your Honor, and while the matter is under consideration, I would like to depart from the courtroom, proceed with my associates across the street to serve the presiding judge. Also, my associate here today has a duplicate copy for which we would like to serve on Mr. Folkowski. Therefore, I would request that these documents, whatever they are, be returned to Mr. Folkowski, and when it's determined how we proceed, such appropriate service would then take place. I believe, Your Honor, that Mr. Folkowski, everyone in the District Attorney's Office, pursuant to this Federal Rules of Civil Procedure Rule 27 petition, as well as every judge in the Fresno County court system appearing in bank, has a personal interest in the outcome of this matter, and therefore be inappropriate and create a conflict of interest.
Now, I never stick all my eggs in one basket. So that's why I say, in the alternative, let's do this. Plan B.
In the event I'm wrong, I would like a minimum of 2 days to prepare a 170.1A6C challenge for cause against each and every judge in the Fresno County Superior Court system.
Now, there's a provision in California Code of Civil Procedures 170.1A6C. It's called a challenge for cause. If you file a challenge for cause against a judge, they have to answer that. If you then disagree with their answer, it has to get sent to another judge in a neighboring county for adjudication. So there's many different ways you can stop these people in their tracks. And as you'll hear, it stops Mr. Folkowski in his tracks. He'd like to set the matter over for a few more days.
I'd go along with his request to continue the case for a couple of days until Friday. I think that's what should be done.
I think that's what should be done. Did he learn that in law school? And then he goes to the Rule 27 petition, and he wants to know, has this been filed? Am I in here somewhere? And then the judge inquires and states, oh, it's been lodged with the federal court. And then I go through and explain to him a Rule 27 petition, how it's filed in the federal court, that it originally goes to a magistrate, etc., etc. And what you got to understand is I'm dealing with a state judge. Actually, she's a commissioner. She's not even a real judge. That's why they want a stipulation so she can hear the case. You have to agree to it. But these state folks don't know anything about federal law. So when I'd shove federal law up their ass, they had no idea what to do.
I haven't had enough. Has this actually been filed? It was.
My copy indicates that it has been lodged with the clerk of the U.S. District Court.
Now there's a pretty picture of absolute judicial confidence. Look at the judge. She's camped out with her arm holding up her head, just confused. I don't know what's going on. I don't like this.
Miscellaneous cases as such are initially set before a magistrate, which has been explained to the federal court clerk to be inappropriate. The case has been titled for Courtroom 1. for the Honorable United States District Court Judge Robert E. Coyle. When cases as such and a petition as such are filed, they are assigned at the interim a miscellaneous case number, and therefore they are only log and not officially filed until it actually goes to the magistrate and then proceeds to the federal court judge for review. At that point in time, it will be assigned a permanent case number for which the following class action lawsuit will additionally be titled under the same case number.
See, I can teach federal law as well as state law. I can teach judges. I can teach licensed attorneys. I can teach anybody.
Again, I was just given a copy of it a minute ago, and there's no named defendants.
There's no named defendants. That's because the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, Rule 27, says you don't list them as defendants. You list them as expected adverse parties. That's in compliance with the rules. See, I can educate you.
Expected adverse parties, I believe, are listed on page 6. Defendants are not, Your Honor, in such a petition to be identified as actual defendants, rather are to be listed as expected adverse parties. And that is in compliance with Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, Rule 27.
I'm sorry, on page 6?
Excuse me, page 8, number 4, James Polkowski, Deputy District Attorney, County of Fresno, ETAL, Family Support Division, number 77777, P.O. Box.
Thank you, I found it.
Now, Mr. Alexander, you said these were your copies that you wanted
That is my
returned?
personal copy, Your Honor, that is correct. Serving the presiding judge and bank would then be his obligation to make the duplicate copies and forward them to every single judge associated.
Tom, if you could return this to, this matter is continued without prejudice to any pending interest before the court.
The matter's continued without any prejudice to the court. Without any prejudice to the janitor, to the cook, to the cleaning staff. We don't want anybody prejudiced here because we don't know what the hell just happened.
To Friday, October the 25th at 1:30. And I guess the first issue that we'll take up is the pendency of an action that might require proceedings in this court being stayed while the federal court addresses Mr. Alexander's questions. So, Mr. Alexander, we'll see you back here on Friday at 1:30.
Your Honor, I got the name of the gentleman, Dennis, who served me with the papers. I'd like, you said he was your associate?
Now, this is one of those things where you can't plan for everything. This guy, Dennis, walks up to me in the hallway outside before court, and he tells me he just got a temporary order that couldn't be enforced as well. Well, that was some of the same issues that we were going to be arguing, me and a bunch of other people, in this class action lawsuit. So that made Dennis a potential prospective co-plaintiff. He wasn't in yet because I hadn't examined any of his documents, so I didn't know if he actually fit the bill. So that kind of threw me a little bit, but you see how I recovered. And if you watch, the important thing is, and I'll point this out in a minute,
He is at this time now to be considered as a prospective co-plaintiff in the class action for which I have been asked to represent such federal interests and rights at stake in the matter.
Okay, as a prospective co-plaintiff, I'd ask that he give me his address so that I would know how to contact him.
Sure, my address is...
Okay, and are you participating in the citizen's arrest?
No, sir, he is not.
You're not participating?
No, sir, he is not.
He can answer for himself.
No, sir.
You're not participating?
No,
Okay.
now there's two different things that happen here. The negative people want to make comments about, hey, he never got arrested, this was clickbait. Arrest and custody are two different things. Now, look at Mr. Polkowski. He's a licensed attorney, so he knows the difference between arrest and custody. And if he didn't think he was placed under citizen's arrest, why would he ask Dennis if he was participating in the citizen's arrest? He acknowledged the citizen's arrest. Why? Because he knew all the elements had been met. Look at his body language. Close the folder, stand up, spin around, move the chair, I'm in control. I'm gonna go over here and giggle, make a joke with Bob, just try and play it off. Look, now I'm gonna go back and I'll move the chair again, and then I'll touch the desk, and now I'm going for my pen, and now I'm putting my pen back. I mean, come on. Watch, I'm going to the pocket. Judge, get me out of here.
Mr. Falkowski, I would reserve to you, having had Mr. identified today as a prospective co-plaintiff, I'm not certain what, if any, effect that would have upon the validity of service by a party. You would, of course, be, I would reserve, simply as a procedural matter, your right to object to that service if he is in fact deemed to be a party to the action.
But then she goes, oh, Mr. Folkowski, and she steps in to represent him like she's his lawyer. She says, oh, Mr. Folkowski, I don't know what effect, if any, a prospective co-plaintiff has on service. Look, he's prospective. He's not a co-plaintiff at that time. He might be in the future. What effect, if any, she doesn't know have on the service? Come on, lady. And then, like, what is she going to extend him a courtesy for? This is filed in the federal court. She's a lowly little commissioner in a state court proceedings. So how can she reserve him anything? Look, it just shows how these people cover up for each other. Even when they don't know what they're doing, they try to cover up for each other. You know, at one point I thought she was going to make a reservation for him at the Holiday Inn, or maybe she was making dinner reservations, or it just seemed pretty pathetic. So I immediately recognized the judge is trying to cover up for him, trying to give him a defective service charge, or, you know, something to get out of the deal. I wasn't properly served. So I pull one faster. I say, oh, Mr. A or Mr. B, if you could serve him, you want to hand those documents back? And what do I get Mr. Folkowski to do? He makes an admission on a record. I've already been served. Thank you very much.
Your Honor, having not directly considered that at the moment, we could return that document and Mr. You'd like to serve him?
I've already been served.
And now the grand finale. I caught him, I set him up, I bagged him, and he's not arguing defective service yet, and she's not. Well, we're not quite going there either, but you see, they reached their limit, and I was just getting warmed up.
He's not
Well,
complaining
let's
at this
avoid-
point.
let's
I
avoid
am
any-
simply, just a second.
Your
Mr.
Honor,
Alexander, just a second. Mr. Falkowski, you're excused. Mr. Alexander, this matter is continued to Friday at 1:30.
Now watch the judge's body language, flipping the damn pages around. She's pissed. And you know me, I gotta get in that parting shot.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm sure that just pissed her off even more. But I'm not done. What do I say next? Is Mr. Folkowski being taken into custody pursuant to my deliverance to this peace officer? And what does she say?
Mr. Falkowski being taken into custody pursuant to my deliverance to this California peace officer.
Mr. Falkowski is subject to the jurisdiction of this court, and he will respond when the court orders him to do so.
And there you have it, that dirty word, subject to the jurisdiction of this court. And he'll respond when the court, if the court ever orders him to do so. And if the court doesn't order him to do so, what does that tell you?
Let the record reflect as such, Your Honor. Thank you very much.
And there's some of my most famous words in baseball. Let the record reflect as such. And then thank you very much, Your Honor, which means fuck you very much, Your Honor.
When may I obtain my video copy of today's proceedings, Your Honor?
As soon as the proceedings are concluded, we'll pull the tape out and give it to you.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll return at the end of the court's business this day. Thank you.
Actually,
Now, remember the very beginning where the judge tells Mr. Folkowski to wait a minute. Mr. Alexander requested a copy of today's proceedings so we could put the tape in, and what do we
And
get?
it wasn't on record because you guys proceeded before I put the tape in the machine.
And even on my way out the damn door, I got one of the best one-liners of the whole game.
Isn't that amazing?
I can make that copy off that tape at the end of the day, and I will give you a call, and you will have your video.
And as always, Mr. Alexander, being his polite, courteous, respectful self, says,
Thank you kindly, ma'am.
and now you could hear a pin drop in the courtroom. The dead silence, the look on the judge's face, the stillness about the place said, Alexander rules.